This is I Dare You with me, Francesca Escoto, your host, where professional women over 40 get the courage to embark on a new adventure. Hello, Yulkendy. How are
Hello.
you?
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining and for being part of I Dare You and our community of daring people that are doing great things in the world with that courage. So I am glad, and I had asked you to be part of this um, podcast because you have been doing really daring work and new work in areas of DEI, not only in technology, but now you're doing some new things. And so you've been Forbes 30 under 30. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so I think that there's a lot that you have been able to accomplish because you're that kind of person that is courageous and is out there doing new things. Of course, you're Dominicana like I am, but we're not gonna make it about that. So high five.
Hey,
um,
Platinum Power.
yes. So tell me about you. There's people here that don't know you. So tell me your story a little bit, and then we'll get into your career and your trajectory.
Yeah, no, so let's definitely start with that origin story. I was born in the Dominican Republic,
Okay.
in a small town called Haina, right outside the big capital. I grew up with a community around me. My grandparents raised me, my aunt, my mom, my dad, who then moved on to the U.S. to live a better life. Like many Latino
Mm-hmm.
folks in this country have done and really paved the way. So when I think about courage, I have to think about definitely
Our
what they
parents.
did to for me to even get
Yeah.
to this point. And I finally got my visa around 10 going 11. I thought I was gonna end up in New York, where I'm here now. But
Yeah.
at 11, I actually landed in St. Louis, Missouri, where there weren't a lot of
How?
Dominicans.
I mean, I'm gonna pause here because I want to talk about the courage, right? Like I am 48 and I am about the age my grandmother was. She might have been a few years older, but about the age my grandmother was when she came to the US and brought me and
Wow.
my family along. And I think of where I am today. I'm like, I mean, I could move to France, but why? Right? I don't have the need. And so, obviously, to understand the need that would make me have to take my family and just move to another country, learn a new language, do like a whole new thing over there, right? That the need has to be great, but also the courage to do it. So, for sure. And then to go to Missouri, like, who is there? What took you to Missouri?
Yeah, no. And so, even after making it here, my parents made another difficult decision around recession right before '08.
Mhm.
Things were getting really expensive in New York. You can still see the change. So they got in a U-Haul truck and landed in the middle of this country. My dad, one of my dads, I'm also have many amazing male figures in my family, and he got a job as a jeweler. And my mom at the time had my little brother in hand, and they just made it home in a place where they have no one. And then I joined in. I didn't speak a word of English, and I'm used to being, a really smart kid.
Yes.
Uh, all of a sudden, getting terrible grades. So I had to
Ah,
teach
that's rough.
myself, English. And like it felt like in a matter of minutes. And I think what saved me actually was spelling bees. Another
Right?
American phenomenon.
Phonetic spelling.
Yes, and
Yes.
so I actually started learning English by giving up all the telenovelas, which is sad to think about, the process that I had to take because that was core to my identity. But I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I had to do it because my parents had taken such a sacrifice. But luckily, I did find a love in American literature and words. I would read the dictionary A through Z, became the spelling bee nerd. And I think that was my big aha moment as an Afro Latina in this country. That all of a
Yes.
sudden I signaling to the world that I'm here and that I'm here to stay by doing something as little as spelling. That was a
Yes.
shock. People
Yeah.
were like, "What Dominicana that can spell
Mm-hmm.
these words?" Presenting in ESPN, representing the state of Missouri again, where there's not that representation in the first place. So I think having that experience at an early age,
Mm-hmm.
one reminded me the importance of representation, and
Yes.
it made me say, I want to continue to do that. Where can I do it? And I started
Mm-hmm.
exploring business and technology because I thought, well, that they need people like me too, because there's
Right.
Bob, there's Mike, but there's not a lot of Yulkendys at a Fortune 500. So I went to
Mm-hmm.
business school, got a lot of cool corporate opportunities, but then bam, the next reality check. There's not a lot of people like me, and even where there's people like me, we couldn't talk about what was going on in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I grew up in Missouri. It was really my teacher. He taught me how America works, and just
Yeah.
going back in my freshman year of college to come back and hear about the death, the murder of Michael Brown 10 minutes away from my house,
Oh,
and then having
wow.
to go back into my internship and pretend like all that mattered was the bullet points on that
Right.
slide when there were
Right.
real stuff going in my community. So I said, I gave my mom a call. And obviously, it took getting a lot of confidence, networking a lot in college to be able to have the courage to call my mom and say, all that I've been working for till I got here, I'm actually not going to take a job in corporate America. I am
Yes.
going to do this company. I think there's a lot of change that needs to happen, and I want to contribute a small piece. And
Yes.
then my mom is like, "Tu te loca? Like, what are you doing?" Which
Yeah.
is like Dominican for like, what are you thinking?
Right.
You have the opportunity to have a stable salary, and now you
Mm-hmm.
again are pursuing uncharted territory. But now I look back at that decision. I think now 7 years later, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made to become an entrepreneur full time. It just taught me a lot as a leader. I had so
Well, a
many
tech
mentors and
entrepreneur at that, right? So
yeah,
we'll go
yeah,
into
and
that in a second. Yeah.
but yeah, so I think really that journey, being an immigrant to this country, and right away getting those aha moments,
Mm-hmm.
uh, is what led me to to these various career decisions that I made along the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So here's what I mean. A lot of things come to mind for me, but one is a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are more my age and older, and so when we're in an older season of life, sometimes we feel like we're too late, we can't do it, I'm too settled, or I have too many bills, I can't take the risk. And so they might look at your story and say something like, oh, well, she had no commitments, she was young, she could, the world was her oyster, she could take that risk. But I think that what's important about your story, and I completely relate because there I was, um, so my first venture was a tech startup as well. I mean, 30 years ago, but it was. I was creating software to track the performance of aircraft engines. And I did that, I'm going to say, maybe like within a year of leaving school. So I did have a job and the side gig, right? Like that was my motto. But I know what it's like to be the immigrant. That for me, I'm the oldest child, and so there is a burden that comes with being the first one in your family in the US to do the thing. And there's expectations that people have of us of getting the job and doing the stable thing. So there's always a risk. So if you were giving your mom advice, what would you be saying to her if she was the one that had like, I'm gonna leave it all, Yulkendy, me volví loca, and I'm gonna go for it? What would you say to her?
Yeah, and I do think about my mom a lot because a lot of my motivation is how can you be happy now? How can my mom experience all the dignity and joy? She
Dignity. I
deserves
love
now,
that.
not in the future, because we're
Yes.
taught to wait for our turn. And
Yes.
I think I'm my mom's reminder every day that her turn is now. And so I do have those
Amen.
daily conversations with my mom. And the reality is, I can't. There's a lot of things about her experience that she's okay because she's thinking about my younger siblings. Even the
Mm-hmm.
way she thinks about her job, she wants my brother to stay in that particular district, so she's not going to switch her job. And so
Yeah.
I admire all the compromises, and thank you to all of you parents out there or caregivers. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot speak to that. And so some of the things just frankly have to wait because she's putting other people's life above her. And I like respect that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the
Mm-hmm.
cool thing that's been happening, I also have been on a self-care journey. So I
Oh.
took a sabbatical this year. And I think when people see like someone that appears to be ambitious taking a break, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on? Are they changing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just been great to normalize that and say,
Mm-hmm.
actually, I come back stronger. And
Yes.
also, I have slowed down because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those things were ingrained in me as, to your point, the oldest child, that I had to take the burden and responsibility. I got a
Mm-hmm.
therapist. She's Dominican too. I waited so long.
Really?
Wanted someone to have my experience, and that's
Yes.
most of what we talked about. And you're right. So because of that, I'm now aware, and
Mm-hmm.
I have to slow down and change my metrics of success. But what has
Mm-hmm.
happened in that process, it also has helped my mom take on the now and say, I want to travel more, not just back to the Dominican Republic, because often we
Mm-hmm.
go back because we
Yeah.
feel our responsibility to the people
Right.
that we left behind. But I'm like, Mom, let's go to Turkey. Sometimes
Yes.
it costs the same amount of money to go
Yeah.
back. We're not thinking in that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I have inspired, I think, my mom to travel more. And that's an area where I think we can make small changes. What are
Yeah.
little things, whether it's even traveling in your own community, how you can give
Mm-hmm.
back to yourself? So that's what I would say to the people listening, that I am so happy that I learned this younger, but there's always
Mm-hmm.
still time to reclaim our lives, to
That's
reclaim
right.
what success means for us. And that's what I've been doing. And I had a great time traveling the world. And now I'm in hustle mode, so I can do it
So you can
again.
do it again.
In a couple of yeah, we need adult vacation.
That's right. That's right. But I think that, I love the phrase, your turn is now. And I might name this episode that, because it doesn't matter where we are in our lives. Like Martha Stewart launched her company when she was 50. And I cannot tell you of the number of artists, for example, that became famous after death. Obviously, we don't want you to be enjoying benefits from the other side. We want you to enjoy it on this side of life. But it's never too late. You can always find that joy. You can always reclaim dignity for yourself, um, especially for those women that don't feel appreciated in their career or that the glass ceiling has kept them from really flourishing and achieving all that they could or contributing all they could to the world. There's always an opportunity for you to enter this adventure of the unknown and carving a new path where you are free, where you are whole, where you show up full, and where you can make the most out of your gifts. So that brings me back to you. Let's talk a little bit about what that first venture was,
Mhm.
what the sabbatical did, and where you are now. Where are you going?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's always helpful to go down memory lane because, life just happens so quickly. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to go back, celebrate small wins, right? And,
Yes.
and take those lessons. And so, actually, you mentioned your first company was a tech company. But when we
Mm-hmm.
started, I had no idea really about tech, venture capital, even though I was at an entrepreneurship focused school. So that was ironic. But really, how we started is because we saw this
So when you
problem
went
that
to
we couldn't.
Babson, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Okay.
they focus more on like family businesses. So I had to first
Oh,
understand
that's interesting.
what are all what does the entire landscape look
Uh-huh.
like? What are all the types of businesses? There's nonprofits, there's social ventures,
That's right.
there's what I call lifestyle businesses, more venture backed. So I didn't
Yeah.
know any of that, but what
Sole
I knew there was a
proprietorships,
problem.
partnerships, yeah, all the
Yeah,
things.
there was a problem I couldn't unsee, which was I found myself as a young professional of color in corporate America, and I couldn't be myself. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have access to the proper mentors, but even more so sponsors, folks that were going to champion and promote me. And then I
Mm-hmm.
started looking at the statistics and realized that it wasn't just me. First, you can see that at the top, right? 30% of the country is Black and Latino,
Yeah.
yet under 3% of senior leadership looks like our community. So there's a big gap. And I essentially wanted to figure out a way, how can we help companies make their culture more accessible, equitable across race, generation, ethnicity. So without tech, I actually started more of a consultancy, a training company. And the reason I already had to start there is because during college, I was actually working in a curriculum, working with Dominican and Dominican Haitian youth to talk about taboo topics. And we took it to
Uh-huh.
Chile and Mexico. So I was doing this work around cultural competency with young
Okay.
people in Latin America. And a friend said, why don't you sell it to companies here? That was helping us in that project. And that's exactly what we did. Out of my dorm room, I was calling companies like Google, SAP, like all these tech companies that were saying, we really care about diversity. What can we
Yeah.
do? And I look back and I laugh because, no track record of being in HR, of even having legitimate corporate experiences beyond internships. But I took a bet
Yeah.
on myself because there was a
Yeah.
problem that I saw was affecting my communities, and that felt genuine to me. And we did get people to say yes, and that led
Yeah,
to,
what I wanted to hear. I want to pause here and I want to talk about, you know, something is that knowledge builds courage. When you know you can boldly step into that knowledge or that expertise and claim it and be like, I know my stuff, so this is how much it's worth to get access to all the fabulosity, right? But I hear you say that with what you knew as a junior in college, senior maybe, you were like, I'm going to call Google and let's see what happens.
that's
And
right.
they, yes, I mean, I don't know if Google said yes, but hey, it's all right. You had a list, you were down your list, and then somebody said yes. And that's all it takes, man.
Yeah, no. Google didn't say yes at the time, but SAP did. SAP
Good
was an
Lord.
amazing partner, and
Congratulations,
from
7
then
years
on,
later.
yeah, and then from then on, but I'll go back to Google full circle. Definitely, Google has been part of the journey as well. But yeah, a lot of no's, some yeses, and that's all we needed. And definitely a
Yeah.
lot of champions. There's always people that want to help. And
Mm-hmm.
around 2019, SAP actually encouraged us to build more, to productize it, because they have 90,000 employees. And that's how I got into
Yes.
technology. And so we had to take a consultancy, a training that was in person, digitize it in a time that, corporate learning was growing, continuous learning, upskilling. So it was a good
Mm-hmm.
time. And that's when AI was coming in, VR, to use it for training. So
Okay.
perfect storm, or was it, right? Now we
Yeah.
know 2020 happened later,
Yes.
which kind of delay a lot of plans, but also build urgency that, hey, those things that
Mm-hmm.
were in process actually are very needed, because we don't know how quickly the world, will continue to evolve. So once
Yeah.
we actually shifted to a tech company, a lot of excitement, but face this, new level of uncertainty. And by the end of 2021, because of the very public murder of George Floyd,
Oh
started
yeah.
going back to our agency and training work, leaning into what actually the companies wanted and needed versus the technology. And I there were a lot of realizations along the way. I'm really proud of all the changes we made, but we know what's happening now, after from the top, the affirmative action being thrown out. There's a lot of fear around DI initiatives, and
Yes.
this is something that I never wished for when I started a company 7 years ago, that we'll be back to this.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say, I'm so happy that I was part of a movement, and I'm still very active. I'm doing DI consulting and work when I see that there's the potential for impact. But I think what we have now that we didn't have back then is, now we definitely have the foundation for a lot of across the board partnerships, coalition building. We're stronger
Mm-hmm.
together, and we know we're not going to be stopped, and that our timing is now, right? Our turn
Yes.
is now. But I
Mm-hmm.
did end up sunsetting that company at the end of 2021. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm in the investor funder side of things. I coach other Black, Latino, women, non-binary folks, and I'm doing it at places like Google for Startups. So all the connections that I made along the way have become part of my network, and it's the
Yeah.
magic of what happens. Whether you called my first business a failure or not, I walked out with a network
Right.
believing me because they saw me try things.
Yes.
And I think people appreciate that, and they will
Mm-hmm.
always remember you, even if it wasn't a yes then, it can be a yes later. So that's why I always put myself out there, because even though someone says no to me now, if they're always going to be looking out for me if we do have shared interest down the line.
That's right. That's right. And being on this side now, so let's talk about Google. Let's bring it back. Being on this side, what is it like to still have your hands and feet perhaps in the startup world, but maybe wearing a different hat? How is that role? How does that feel given the work that you were doing before that was more like training for corporations, whereas now you're working with the startup? How how is that for you?
Yeah, it's so cool. So many people working on amazing things. Latino entrepreneurs are, for example, very tech savvy. We don't talk about it enough. We
Yeah.
drive a lot of innovation in tech. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of our tools are AI first, are AI powers, and even better so, Latino entrepreneurs are building more responsibly. So it's an honor to partner
Mm-hmm.
with these companies that are working not just within corporations, but in healthcare, in government, in social impact all over the country, all over the globe. So it's been amazing. Honestly, I thought at first my ego would be like, "You're not the entrepreneur anymore." But I like both. I'm always forever going to be a founder, and I'm working on some future projects around mental health. Um,
Oh, awesome.
and I hope to be back on the founder table. But in the meantime, I'm happy to just be a small part of cultivating the ecosystem further and supporting
Mm-hmm.
others and driving the innovation that our communities need.
So do you still consider yourself an entrepreneur, though you're not leading your own business right now?
Actually, I took a break, um, um, because I think it's important after you close a business to reflect, slow down. There's some people that go back to back, but it's strongly recommended. Obviously, just with any change and transition, right? You need a
Mm-hmm.
break. But I couldn't help it, and I had, I think people say, when should I do it? You will know. It's like a very intuitive calling that you get. So, what ended up happening right after I closed my business, everything was fine. I transitioned to the venture capital world. I was on the other
Mm-hmm.
side, but I was still dealing with the effects of the pandemic. And my
Oh.
physical health really took a turn, being impacted by my mental health very subconsciously. It came out of nowhere. And I found myself in hospital rooms trying to get answers, talking to all sorts of specialists because I have no idea what was going on,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I certainly know over the years I've dealt with anxiety.
Yeah.
but I never saw it fruition in that way. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when I was really called to tackle the mental health crisis in this country, especially for young
Mm-hmm.
people. So
Yeah.
that's something that I've been working on, and I have some collaborators. And I also launched a small business, also realizing you can do multiple things at once. I think the
Yes.
first time around, I was 150% on a company. You got to
Mm-hmm.
experiment. You're allowed to experiment, do a bunch of projects, and then your time will determine and progress will determine what you invest in each
Mm-hmm.
bucket. And so now I have another business actually with my same business partner. So I guess we still like each other. He's also Dominican, one of my longtime friends, basically family. And now we're actually building a talent agency for public speakers, DJs, called Phenomenal Talent. So really excited for that project. After we closed the company, he became a DJ. I also started doing more public speaking. So that's one of my projects. So the founder title will never go away, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of whether you have a day job or not. And I'm lucky that I am very transparent about what I do outside of work, and my
Mm-hmm.
managers, folks that I partner with for my work, they know, and they actually want to see me
Mm-hmm.
succeed. Obviously, I still got to get my work done, so I'm
That's
able to
right.
do that. But it's good to be transparent. It's good to let people know what you're doing, because often more than not they want to support.
Yeah, and that's so important, you Candy. One, the transparency. We sometimes, and maybe it's a colonizer mentality where you don't, you feel like you have to be so loyal to the corporation or something. I don't know, but we have sometimes the fear of bringing all of who we are into our work, and we feel like we have to, the proverbial phrase, leave your personal stuff at the door, right? And that's not necessary anymore. We can come into our job and talk to people and say, hey, I paint. So some of these are my paintings. I have multiple sites. I do different things, and I see it like you were saying. My analogy is like you're planting seeds and you don't know which is going to become a tree or which is going to be just a shrub or which one's going to die right in the pot, right? So you just water different things, and it's okay to allow time to tell you how to move and which direction to go. And so long as you're not doing something that is creating conflict of interest with your employer, then you should feel free to experiment and to test things outside. And not only that, the comfort or the safety of an employer and a paycheck actually sometimes allows you to experiment with a little bit more freedom than you would if you were strapped for money and you needed $500 today, right? So I think that that's really the way for people to go, and I'm glad that you're finding that balance, that you're saying, it's not one or the other, it's both. So
I mean,
that's pretty cool.
I'm very I would give a disclaimer though. It depends on your time and context in life. As you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, I'm not in my early 20s anymore, so things happen slowly. I am not able to take as a quick jump, but for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, I don't advocate for doing things that where you're not sleeping, like you're
Oh
working
yeah, no, no, no.
on weekends.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that person. No, I think yes, your turn is now, but then the second piece is let time do its thing. Once you put
Mm-hmm.
consistency, give yourself grace. Time will do its thing, but
Mm-hmm.
let's definitely not operate beyond our limits, because that's not
Yeah.
sustainable and that's not what life is about.
Yeah.
So the soonest I can get to do my startup full time, that's ideal. Versus also having a job and also having the
Absolutely.
startup
Absolutely.
in the right. So I want to
Yeah.
clear that up, because I'm a big, as you know, my next venture is in mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
people know that's all I
Listen,
love to talk about these days.
I so I am a certified life coach, but I'm also a big advocate for therapy, and I've been in therapy. My three kids are in therapy. We could talk for days about the mental health crisis in youth in our country today. I deal with neurodivergence at home and with people that, like, one of my daughters is super driven. but it also can be a reflection of manic episodes. And so it's socially acceptable to be a straight A student. It's socially acceptable to be very motivated. But when the energy behind that is actually a biochemical imbalance that can put you into very dangerous situations, it's not worth it, right? So I too come from that place, so much so that I created a tool, is the startup success self-check, and people can find the link in the bottom below this video. It's a free tool that you can use to look at how ready you are to start something right now. And time is one of those factors that they're going to look into, but also support. Because to go into something with little time and with no support is a recipe for either self-sabotage or crash and burn. So for sure, if you're listening to this and when you hear me say that you can do multiple things, what I'm saying is not that you need to burn the midnight oil and go to bed at 3 and wake up at 6. What I'm saying is that there's a way for you to experiment, to do little things, and to get a big bang for your buck, and to test ideas. I'm big on testing, so my background's in engineering. And so I went into the world with this idea of design of experiments, test a little bit here and there so that you know, or you have a good idea of the potential of success for something. So anyhow, that was a big spiel to say, Yulkendy, I'm right there with you. I agree. And we got to make sure not only that you're sleeping, because creativity is actually very much linked to your biology. So if you are craving new ideas, or if you're trying to solve a problem, the first thing you need to do is go for a walk and then you take a nap. So instead of thinking harder or staring at your computer, you need to move away from work and allow creativity to surge from recreation. I feel like I'm digressing here, but let's come back. So what would you say is next for you? What is the next thing that requires courage from Yulkendy?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to build a second company. It comes again with potential financial sacrifices. Starting something new takes time to ramp up. It also might mean that I have to adjust my self care, right? Because I love being an entrepreneur, but you do work more hours than your regular job. It's not that easy at the beginning, especially in year one and year two. So just a lot of mental preparation going into it. So yeah, I might need to check out the checklist again. Thank you for sharing that with the audience. So, but yeah, I'm excited. To this one is gonna be tech enabled from the beginning. I do believe in the power of technology. Our young people, they're very comfortable with AI, with texting. They're on their phones as a tool that they love. It will never replace in person and community. So would never also want to advocate for that fully, but definitely we're going to be tapping into technology, mix it with real community and in person. So really excited. I'm also going to be pushing through the agency. So I'm a public speaker, and so the next step there is for me to write a book, actually. So I'm telling everyone about it, so to hold me accountable. It's something that's been in the works for a few years, but I think I'm finally putting pen to paper, and I'm excited because a lot of people along the way, young people, younger women, have come up to me and asked me, "Yeah, how did you get to be so brave?" But actually, I actually said I never was brave. I just saw no other option. And
Yes.
but I think the reason that gets a little bit uh, confusing is because we're taught the opposite. We're taught not to choose ourselves. So the minute we're choosing ourselves, it feels like, what are we doing? Or we're
Right.
taught that we cannot challenge the status quo, that we have to say the right thing, listen, uh, follow the authority. So it
Keep the
feels like we're
job.
doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But actually, no, I feel like I just finally tapped into something, and I knew actually I am doing something right. I'm creating my own way of life, and I want my communities to be treated differently, and the time is now. And so it wasn't much about courage or bravery. but finally just saying it's, we deserve that too. The seat at the table. We deserve our choices. We deserve our options. We deserve financial investment, health
Yes.
equity, everything. And so it's just saying yes to yourself. So I'm excited to continue to reflect on that through writing the book, and also just building more companies.
I am excited for that book. I want to read it already. And I can't wait to see what you create around mental health for young people. I have three daughters that need it. So very, very excited for all of this. Any last words or parting words that you would want to share with the audience?
Yeah. Well, no, just like gratitude. You mentioned your audience is really made of folks across generations, and I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
here because of folks um, that have experience a lot of the ups and downs, the high and the lows. Those mentors, those champions, those peers, those friends, the family. Our ancestors, and I just want to. I love intergenerational spaces.
Yes.
Even when I did my TED talk, and on why women of color are the future of tech, I joined forces with a mentor that's Dominican that I met at a conference, and I wasn't used to seeing a lot of
Yes.
folks that were had decades on me, had the
Yeah. Yeah.
experience, the wisdom for us to come together and say we need each other. It's always
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. So just lucky to be invited to this space and want to express gratitude to your community.
No, and gratitude to you and your generation and all the strides that you guys are making. We've carved a path, but you guys are now trailblazing through it, and that was the vision. And thank you for taking up the torch and following the trail that has been kind of carved or at least hacked along for you. So thank you so much. This one really touched me. So hug, hug. When I see you again, you're getting a big hug.
Bye bye.
Bye.